I'm not gonna lecture y'all, I'm gonna talk to y'all, and we gonna have a conversation. First of all, can everybody turn around? Like the sun's out, it is beautiful, right? We talk about healing, we talk about health, we talk about, you know, oh, this is really hard, we're gonna talk about maternal morbidity and mortality. But then we never talk about how do we continue to do this kind of hard work. Look, I'm gonna take that off because people who know me know I am who I am. We talk about the hard work that we have to do, but then we don't talk about the healing, the restoration, the love, the joy, all of those different things. And so periodically, if y'all turn around and look at the fact that the sun is out and the water is there, I'm not gonna be mad at you. If you need to get up or go to the bathroom and take care of yourself, do whatever. I'm a nurse, I feel very strongly about these things. Jax, thank you so much for your opening. I really appreciate what you had to say. Having the courage to acknowledge the anxiety, the fear, the anger, the frustration, the hurt. I mean, I was just at my undergrad 30-year reunion in Jersey, so I'm a little jet lagged, so y'all don't forget me. And I thought about the person when I first wanted to be a nurse, right? I was back with all these people, I was talking about all my hopes, my dreams, all the work I was gonna do. And like, it's fascinating to sort of like recognize that my undergraduate baccalaureate nursing education has allowed me to be the person that I am. But to then turn around and look at the world that I'm now trying to do my work in as a 50, almost 4-year person. When I was born prematurely in 1969, and our prematurity statistics are no better today than they were when I was born in 1969. At some point we have to say enough, right? The people who just saw, they said everything that needed to get said. At some point we have to act. We have to move beyond describing. We have to move beyond stating the obvious. We're done, right? So my job here today is to activate y'all, to motivate you, and instead of telling you that we need to do something and convincing you of that, I'm gonna tell you how we might need to do it. And that's gonna hurt some feelings, people gonna be upset, whatever, we all going together and we're gonna figure it out. Because here's the secret message though, right? Here's the thing that nobody will tell you. I'm gonna walk around and do what I want because I'm old and I need to move my body. We have the brilliance and the creativity to figure this out. Like, this is not impossible, right? When our Native Indigenous College were just talking about small data, I talk to Abigail Echo Hawk about this all the time. I am a laboratory basic scientist, right? I trained in the laboratory, and we figured out how to do statistics on an N of 5. Y'all know we mapped the human genome with the blood 5 people, the first version? And we figured out every statistical method in the universe. We figured out how to advance the careers of thousands of scientists, labs all over the world, right? We figured that out because that was important. We can figure this out. Okay, so yeah, I got some nods already. Right. We already did our acknowledgements. Can we get to the labor acknowledgement? Because I think the land acknowledgement is really important, but I also think the labor acknowledgement is really important because I think credit, history, all of these things are part of healing. All of these things are part of becoming conversant in the kinds of conversations that we need to be having with ourselves, our communities, our families. Everybody talk about we need to be more trustworthy. Nobody tells you how to do it. One way is tell the truth when it matters. Right? Yeah. I got to shout out the founding members of Reproductive Justice. We're talking about perinatal health here. Right? We're talking about the propagation of our species. Right? People who are courageous enough to be parents, to shepherd new humans in this world. I'm childless by choice for a reason. That takes all sorts of courage that I don't have. That an uncertainty that somebody's going to come here and they may be very different than who you wanted them to be, right? That takes courage. I don't have time for that. The 12 founding mothers of reproductive justice years ago came together and asked us, they told us how to do this work differently. Right? This is one of the reasons why my work is guided by reproductive justice. I don't do reproductive health work. I mean, I guess I do. But, that one-on-one, you come in, you get your testicular exam, you get your breast exam, sexually transmitted infections, like all that. That's reproductive health. Reproductive rights. I might be one of the plaintiffs in temporary restraining orders around the country. because the Dobbs decision, now all of a sudden everybody is starting to understand that we spent too much time studying the outcomes of pregnancy, right? Abortion, infertility, birth, all that. But the real condition is actually pregnancy. Everybody's now waking up to the fact that all these things are connected. And what's the connection? Oh, it's the state of being pregnant, right? That's the thing we should have been studying all along, but okay with it. These people conceptualized 4 very important principles that I'm going to tell you what they are. The first is, in a human rights perspective. Our previous speaker was talking about sovereignty and gave us a really good history lesson. But there's one thing that I want to add to what they said. And that is, in the United States, because of the way we were founded, we have negative rights. We didn't mean monarchy. What that means is that because we were fleeing a monarchy, right, we wanted to have freedom from the government. So when you have negative rights, that's kind of incongruent with human rights. So anyway, reproductive justice is grounded in a human right frame, which says that every human has the fundamental right to get pregnant, to create family, to birth, to create kin, and have all of the social supports, and educational supports, and spiritual supports, everything you need in order to be successful in doing that. It also says that people have the fundamental human right to not get pregnant, to not have children, and to be able to end pregnancies or to make that not be a thing with all the supports that they need in order to be able to do that. That you have the fundamental human right to be able to raise the children that you already have, free from violence from any individual or from any state or any government. I mean, imagine if we, like, where we would be. We've already heard, like, Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, like, even in our own home state, even in my own home state of New Jersey, we can't keep people alive, right? This allows us to bring in, like, people who are disabled, parent the children that you already have. You don't have to give up custody rights if you may have committed a crime and might be incarcerated, right? This is really different. It covers a whole variety of things. If you say people have the human right to parent their children free from violence from an individual or from a state or government. And then the 4th tenet, which really makes people nervous because we have a pseudo, in my opinion, puritanical Judeo-Christian understanding of sexuality and sex, because that's the other thing nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about pregnancy. Nobody wants to talk about sex. It's the sex that's the problem, right? You have a fundamental human right to disassociate sex from reproduction. Then we can have a conversation about what is healthy sexuality? What is consent? What is pleasure? Isn't that part of a whole human life? Right? Then we can start to talk about, we can reject the idea that trial and error is the best that we can get when it comes to things like, oh, what's your sexual orientation? Or what contraceptive method do you want to use? Right? We somehow subliminally accept those things, but we don't have to. Okay. Nomenclature. One way to get beyond the fear, the frustration, the intimidation of talking about racism, of talking about maternal deaths. If you want to be a truth teller, you got to use the right words at the right time with the right people. So let's go through some. I've already done some of this, right? And I'll give you my slides so that you can read this and think about it and have a script and be able to use it. Because it's very helpful to understand which word you're using when, right? A lot of times people use, choice or reproductive health, or all these euphemisms. We can't even tell the truth in the work that we do. So one of the most amazing interventions that we can use to move towards health equity and to improve health outcomes and to disrupt racism is to tell the truth. Okay. I'm going to show you some pictures. I'm a visual person. Yes. Okay. But it doesn't look good. Okay. Darn, I should have made the font white. Okay. One thing I want to talk about is this idea of social determinants of health. We've heard things that have come up around social support and transportation. And unfortunately, what ends up happening in my discipline of nursing is a lot of times we become extensions of the state. Right? I can't tell you how many times I have to talk to nursing groups around calling child protective services and neglect and all this other stuff. Like at some point we all got to get on the same page about the things that we're talking about. And when you talk about the social determinants of health, here's 2 other guidelines to help you understand how we're going to disrupt racism in real time. The first one is, don't talk about the social determinants of health as if they are inherently negative, because they're not, right? If you look on this visual, I'll read them out to you because you probably can't see it because the font is like jacked up and it should be white, but okay, whatever. The social determinant, this is safe, affordable housing, living wage, quality education, transportation, availability of food, social connection, and safety and job security. Those are not inherently negative. What's inherently negative is the lack of these things. Yep. Right? Okay, we're gonna call them response. Yes, right? Because you know it's afternoon, we need that. Okay. It's the lack of these things. So if you understand one really important point, that the social determinants of health are not inherently negative, then you've got to take that to the next level and say, okay, well, if that's true, if the social determinants of health in and of themselves are not negative, where do they come from? Right? They don't just fall out of the sky. You don't have a lack of availability of food just cause, right? Or quality transportation, or education, or that we can't even pay our citizens a basic minimum income or a living wage. I mean, I can't wait to continue to watch this AI situation take jobs away from people, and all of a sudden, watch, the conversation will be real different about what's the basic minimum income that we need, because people's skills are being replaced by algorithms. And so at some point, right, somebody's gonna have to say, well, how are people gonna make money in a capitalist environment if they no longer can work? Right? We had an opportunity to look at that during COVID. Remember when they sent the checks out to people? Right, folks was mad. And I was like, why are y'all mad? We're like, what's the situation? Okay, so social determinants of health are not inherently negative, and the social determinants of health don't fall out of the sky. Okay, well then where do they come from, Monica? Well, we see distributions, or we've heard the word disparities of distributions of illness and wellness in our society. Well, the social determinants of health are a result of policy decisions, right? Power, wealth, and balance, that's just not a thing. That didn't come from nowhere, right? When you think about labor markets, we see our auto worker friends on strike, right? We just saw Hollywood on strike. This is for deep principles. Oh, yes. Hey, how you doing?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
If we turn off the front lights, maybe we could see that?
Oh, if you turn off the front light, maybe, well, somebody more technically savvy will have to deal with that than I have, because I've never been in this building before. Because somebody think about me. Right? With the child, like all of me up there. Okay. So, oh, look at that. Yes. Thank you for that fabulous. See, this is another principle, though, of how we get to disrupting racism. Courage. You have to raise your hand and suggest something that nobody else in the room said. So thank you very much. Okay. Power and wealth imbalance. When you look at housing policy, education systems, globalization and deregulations, the fact that we still have no social safety net after COVID, we should all be ashamed. Right? I was in DC at the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine meeting, the NASM meeting, to go cuss them out about the fact that somebody has to start saying, and I think it should be nursing, but we will never, and I'm using the word never purposely, it's not a word I usually use, but we will never see balances or some better distribution, of illness and wellness, or opportunity for wellness and well-being without a robust social safety net. Right? Healthcare cannot fix this. I know everybody's trying to do that because that's where they think the money and the political will is, but we don't do this well. Right? Immortality is not an option for our species. So all we all really want is a dignified life and a dignified death. And we're either going to pay for it on the front end with a social safety net, or we're going to pay for it on the back end with very expensive health care. And right now, clearly, we've decided that we're going to pay for it on the back end, which makes no sense to me as a public health prevention researcher who's a nurse. That makes no sense to me. Tax policy. We're gonna hear a lot about this because you know the elections next year. Right? And we can fund all the wars around the world, but we can't even take care of our own people.
Amen.
I said it. Right? I mean, seriously, we can send billions.
That's right.
And I'm not like hating on that role, but like, can we think about those maternal deaths that we saw in the first slides? Can we think about the fact that the omnibus has been introduced by nurses in Congress 4 years in a row and it's still languished, only one has passed? Right, that's a problem. 12 bills to address everything that was in our maternal morbidity and mortality report. Everything from the perinatal workforce to data needs. Because like Lauren Underwood and Corey Bush and like Alma Adams, they get this problem. They know we need the human, money, space, time, and reputational resources to fix this. So if the social determinants of health don't fall out the sky, and if they are a result of policy decisions with power, wealth, and balance, well, where does that come from? Well, that comes from three things: institutional racism, class oppression, gender discrimination, and exploitation and/or patriarchy. Right? At some point, I am really hoping that we will go back to matriarchal things and matriarchal ways of understanding the world. Like, I'm a nurse, I always say this all the time. Nursing is shared work. And so I have a love-hate relationship with things like academia and healthcare that are really individualistic. Because how are you supposed to operationalize shared work, but like you're the only person responsible if something goes wrong with the patient? That's always weird. We're gonna fix that too. So, take on books. Social determinants of health do not fall off the sky. They're a result of policy decisions. Health disparities arise from structural racism because we allow that to happen. And health inequities only persist because of structural racism. Okay? If we can start to talk about our work in that way, it's not that somebody called you an N-word. It's not that somehow your feelings got hurt or whatever, or some customer service gone bad or some social media thing. We can reject all of that and actually really break it down for the public and to help them to understand. That's why we're asking you to vote. It's not a popularity contest. You're a citizen. And as a citizen, I hope you care about the health and well-being of the U.S. citizens, the Washington State citizens, right? That's the moral high ground. That's the language we need to be using to rationalize to people why we want to continue to use maternal child health as a population level indicator of the health and well-being of our nation. If we can't keep those people alive, we're all doomed. All right, I talk about this a lot, and I'm gonna run through this really quickly because Retrofit, Reform, and Reimagine, I published this in what, JPID? Yeah, Journal of Perinatal Nursing. Because people I was doing some talks, and people was like, Monica, you gotta write this up because we need to be able to use this framework. It's another tool to help us make decisions about human, money, space, time, and reputational resources to move us towards not only health equity, but to reduce and disrupt the racism that is killing people, right? These are from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. I'm not going to read them. But one thing I do want to point out, though, if you're going to retrofit your programs, if we're going to retrofit healthcare, if we're going to retrofit, how we provide social services, there is a fundamental problem with retrofitting something, and that is the inherent structure does not change. So we can do all the pontificating in the world in here about how we want to be able to increase access to doulas, increase access to midwives, but the truth of the matter is, as long as healthcare financing determines what care people get, everything we do is a retrofit. So we don't want to waste all our reimagined energy when the payment models are going to be limiting and restricting to what's possible. We just have to tell the truth about that. That's how you get to trustworthiness, right? We can be as aspirational as we want to be in the universe. Oh yeah, we're going to do this. We want to do that. I'm going to show you why that's the problem. But be honest about retrofit, right? If in Washington State we don't want our numbers to increase, and yes, these deaths are unacceptable, yes, I am actually more worried about morbidity than I am mortality, right? Because that's lifelong and intergenerational impacts. But like, let's be honest about what's a retrofit. Not that we're purposively limiting what's possible, but we're never going to decrease maternal morbidity and mortality without additional human money, space, time, and reputational resources. So the best we can do is harm reduction, which is a retrofit. Reform. I love this definition. So these are all from Merriam-Webster because it has the word remove in it. We never remove stuff. We always adding things. And sometimes there are things that we are doing that's not working. And so we need to remove that, right? And we need to give ourselves grace and space to be able to be like, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna take that out. Or we're not gonna do that. Reformation is really important because reformation, you can change the inherent structure. I remember when I started my work doing as a registered nurse 30 years ago, I would talk about social support and birth workers and community health workers and doulas and everything. People looked at me like I was crazy. Now, folk are all thinking that doulas are the panacea to fixing this problem. And I always like to correct people and get y'all to understand doulas cannot fix a problem they did not create. At best, harm reduction, right? At some point, me and my peeps, nurses, physicians, social work, anesthesia, mental health worker, we got to get ourselves together because it's actually the incongruent teams and not keeping our eye and focus on that childbearing family. That's the problem, right? That's one of the reasons why we talk about diversification of the healthcare workforce. It's not just around concordance, but it's also around shared experience. It's also around cultural rigor and translation. So people understand that when you talk about language discordance, but they don't want to talk about it when you want to talk about cultural discordance. Because when we're looking at signs and symptoms of deterioration, I don't need to interpret, black cues for you, right? We're losing time. And so either we're going to increase the workforce that actually can recognize those signs and symptoms of deterioration or believe people when they use whatever language they use to describe said deterioration, or we're going to continue to see the outcomes that we're seeing. This is the space I like to live in. I know a lot of y'all probably do too, the reimagining space. And you want to recreate it. Well, we want to burn it down and start all over. Yes? Right? Team burn it down. Right? Here's the problem. Got to get your people out first. You can't just burn stuff down. That's the problem. You got to get your people out first. The other problem with the Team Reimagine is this is the dream space. Right? You can sit here all day and do absolutely nothing. And the world keeps on turning. So, one thing I've learned in presenting this framework, retrofit, reform, reimagine is not linear. There's no time element to it. We need all three, all at the same time, and everybody can't be on the same team, right? So when we're starting to, whether it's program design, program evaluation, resource allocation, whatever it is, this is always functioning. People are always showing up in one of these different spaces. So another way to think about it is, you can say that reproductive health, me walking into your room, I'm gonna, give you a cup and you're gonna, do a gonorrhea and chlamydia for urine. That's reproductive health, that's a retrofit. The legal protections that we expect as citizens, all the court cases around the country, well, you can think about that as reproductive rights. Right, the legal protections that ensure that people who want to optimize a reproductive health trajectory over time has the capacity to do so. But reproductive justice, again, getting back to the fact, we want to recreate, we want to do something new. We need all three of these things right now. Right? Because we can't even live in a country that has paid family leave. I said this at the Stat Summit last week, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy. It was like all these venture capitalists and people that were in the room that, are responsible for controlling hundreds of millions of dollars. And when I said that, they were confused because, of course, all of their employees had that. And when I asked, and I raised a hand, I said, okay, we here at Boston, Globe Media, I said, how many people of the journalists that are here at the Stat Summit, how many of y'all got paid family leave? You know how many hands went up? 0. I said, y'all in a room talking about, pharma and biotech, venture capital, a whole variety of things. Y'all don't even realize that the one thing you take for granted that you assume everybody has, the sponsors of this meeting don't even have access to that. I said, so maybe we need to, again, truth tellers, saying the right thing at the right time to the right audiences. Our expectation always has been, and this is something around like how much of the legislature are we going to ask for? Right, there's government, there's philanthropy, and then there's like the private, like for-profit venture capital. Where's the asks of all of them to help us figure this out? Right? It's one thing to go to the legislature, but there are other people we need to make asks of in those other domains. And I would argue that, private equity, venture capital, and philanthropy are the other people whose help we need. Okay. Context matters. Someone's going to tell me how much time I have, right? Because I'm checking. When I published these data, and I have to say this in front of this audience, because y'all are like a perinatal collaborative. I love collaboratives and collectives. I think it's really important that you bring together clinical health services, provision, public health, policy, people with lived experience, I think all of that's really important, Black infant health, like all of it. Okay. When I saw these data, I published these with Saraswati Vidam and the Birthplace Lab at University of British Columbia. I was so heartbroken. I've only worked in reproductive health rights and justice my whole life as a career, like as a nurse. So when I saw this, it wasn't surprising, but I was really heartbroken. And for the people in the back, 1 in 6 people experiencing mistreatment, like being shouted at and scolded at, healthcare providers ignoring people and refusing their request for help. This is nursing right here, not answering the call bell, right? Or, failing to respond to requests for help in a reasonable time. You know what this told me? I didn't get mad at healthcare workers at all. Because this taught me that patient mistreatment and clinician burnout are 2 sides of the same coin. Why? Because our workplaces are inhumane. Right. People want us to spend time spinning our wheels, pitting ourselves against each other. But the truth of the matter is, if we teamed up with patients and told the payers and the risk management people and all the folks who make decisions that like keep us in that like spinny wheel of, well, no, it's on you. No, that's on you. No, like if we teamed up with them and said, well, our workplace is inhumane, it don't work for the patients and it don't work for us, so what we rebuilding? Maybe we might have a different conversation. The one point I want to make here, the top 4 types of mistreatment are horrible. Like when we ask these questions, I was like, you sure you want to ask this in the U.S. context, instead of being all like, like U.S.-centric, like somehow we was special. And they were like, no, we're asking these questions, Monica. And I was like, okay. I was stunned. We can fix this up, right? Don't let the surprise, the frustration of these statistics, don't let them stop us from doing our work. We can fix this, right? When I wrote this for Scientific American, I said to the editors, they first wanted me to name this, and this is another place where this room can be helpful when you're using the power that you have. They wanted me to write a piece called The Root Causes of Maternal Death in the United States. And I said, nah, I can't write that. I said, first of all, you've been continuously published for 185 years. And this is going to be a data visualization project. I said, if I write an article with accompanying graphics talking about the root cause of maternal death in the United States, it will lead people to believe there's nothing we can do about it. I said, and I don't want to be the only living Black person in my article. Let me say that again. I don't want to be the only living Black person in my article. I want to put solutions forward that community members and community-based organizations led by Black people would like to see have happen, so that we can tell people how to fix, how to reduce, right? Because we talk about these deaths as if they were preventable, but then we don't know how. I fought to have this panel included, and you can see this for free, because all data visualization projects for Scientific American, after they have 90 days proprietary in the magazine, they are then given a permanent URL where they live. And mine lives on the Black Mamas Matter Alliance website, because if I'm gonna write a paper about maternal morbidity and mortality and feature like Black-led organizations, the legacy link is not gonna live on any university where I work at. It's gonna be with the Black Mamas Matter Alliance. But I fought to make sure the preventability, right, the percentages, here's what causes them, here are the ones that we think are preventable. And this is why, you know, when I was talking to A1 in Bremerton, the hemorrhage bundles, the postpartum like toolkits that they have, it's crucial. I love that they did it in infographic form, right? But we gotta move those along more. One of the things me and my team are talking about is maybe doing some TikToks and taking pieces of those cards and breaking them down into small chunks, explaining it to the public, why it matters, right? We have to start using some new tools to reach the public. Everybody told me as a scientist, you really want to write a piece for Scientific American? Yes! We have to talk directly to the people we serve. Because if we can't talk directly to the people we serve, clearly they're going to be, you know, influenced by folks who are trying to provide misinformation. How does that garner trust? Right? I wrote this on March 26th of 2020. I stood by every word. This was when we were at the height of the deaths of COVID in New York City, and they banned doulas and family members from hospitals in New York. Think about this. You courageous enough to birth during a global pandemic and shepherd a new human into this world. Like, we lost our way when whoever made this decision. I had to fight with Louise P. King and Neil Shaw, because at the time they were both at Harvard and they were in the bioethics department, and they had written this whole piece around the ethical case for the barring of accompaniment during birth. And I just sat there, and every cell in my genome, I was like, this is wrong, right? And part of what I said in this, and I still stand by this, garnering trust, free masks, free hand sanitizers, free vaccines, free consultative appointments to talk through one's hesitancy with no expectation that you're going to take the shot. Being able to talk to a community health worker about your concern, right? Opening up social media channels to answer people. That's why I did the whole ad around the Kaiser Family Foundation. We are greater than COVID, the Black COVID Project. Trusted messengers on your teams. This is really important. If we don't do this in my lifetime, this and paid family leave, I'm just gonna like have, then I'm gonna be on team burn it down, right? The fact that we can't, like, extending postpartum coverage is like the #1 thing. Is you saw the lines on the first presenter slides around why going out to a year is so important. Let me tell you a story to help you concretize this, and you can tell this story and make sure you credit me when you say it, right? If we need to convince lawmakers and people to vote and all this other stuff, let me tell you this story. I had a mom who was driving for Lyft and Uber. She was pregnant, and she was doing that. She was married, Black woman, and her mom got breast cancer. And of course, she couldn't have a job that was flexible enough to have enough paid time off so that she could take care of her mother and be pregnant. Her husband made enough money, and so she was driving for Lyft and Uber. As her mother's condition started to deteriorate, and as her pregnancy kept advancing, she started, you know, having some complications, looking like she was gonna have some signs and symptoms of preeclampsia. Her relationship started to fall apart with the person involved in the pregnancy. And so what ended up happening is she ended up having an emergency C-section. Her mother was fine and survived cancer treatment. She had an emergency C-section. Guess what she was doing 10 days after her C-section? Driving for Lyft and Uber. The last thing on the planet you need to be doing after major abdominal surgery, right? We shouldn't be confused about if she developed a pulmonary embolus or thrombus, right? Because you shouldn't be sitting in the car driving 10 days postpartum because you need money. Like, seriously? What about lactation? What about the maternal attachment, the bonding with the other children in her family? What about working through that conflict with the person involved in the pregnancy? That's how we're revering childbearing families. I know everybody wants me to give you like a secret pill, whatever. Storytelling, truth telling. Even when you don't think it's like convenient or right. It's important because you never know who's listening. And telling these stories, like really humanizing this notion that we can't be a country where people are driving for Lyft and Uber 10 days after major abdominal surgery and expect great outcomes.
Yeah.
We gotta disrupt that, right? Whether they understand the science behind, deep vein thrombosis or not, whether they understand postpartum pain, we have got to start telling these stories in ways that will help people to understand we're not just being hyperbolic, but if we want to be very serious about saving lives, it's going to require new solutions and ones that are really uncomfortable to talk about right now in our current environment. This abortion situation and Dobbs, we're going to deal with this at some point, and regardless of what you think about abortion, I mean, polling has shown all along it's messy. Okay, so let's talk about it like it's messy. But let's reject the binary, the dichotomous lies that we've been told for the last 40 years. Let's not do that. Abortion is messy. Sometimes people can't engage with it because of the moral compass. That's a thing. Sometimes people have their own infertility journey that you don't know about. Sometimes it has to do with total ignorance of the entire issue. Sometimes they had their own abortion and they haven't really reconciled that. Sometimes they had their own abortion and they don't care. It's messy. And guess what? Here's the real secret. Pregnancy is just as messy. Right? You don't see people running around in the universe talking about they regret parenthood. Why? Because humans are resilient. Right? Being a human is resilience. Our science around all of this is messy. So let's tell the truth about it. But let's not automatically make people pick sides. We can't talk to them anymore. That makes no sense, right? One thing that drove me up a tree when we first had Dobbs hit was I said we're going to lose trust with the people that we serve. Because I did a focus group, I will never forget this, in Oakland, California. And the pregnant people told me that they would rather be marked as late entry to prenatal care than to admit to their providers they drove around for a month trying to get a wanted abortion that they couldn't get. I mean, just think about that. Like, people would rather deal with the stigma of coming late to prenatal care than to tell us the truth. That's a problem. So we need to curate spaces where truth telling is possible. And I'm getting close to the end of time. So I want to fast forward to two things. This one. We had misinformation and disinformation at the University of California, San Francisco, where I was at the time, on our own websites when Beyonce talked about toxemia of pregnancy. Similarly, I did some work with ProPublica, and when we looked at Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, like, be discerning. Like, they were dated websites. At the time, the information that they were providing, yes, was correct. But we need to be more discerning consumers, and we need to help the communities that we serve to be more discerning as well. We need to reject what the algorithms and social media want us to do. They keep lying to us to say that our country is polarized. Our country is not polarized. Our Congress is. Right? I've been trouble all over the country talking about reproductive health rights and justice, and I'm going to tell you, our country is not polarized. Our Congress is. And we can reject that and use every conversation and every opportunity that we have to make all of this different. So I appreciate you listening. I really, really am grateful for the work that you're all doing. We can make this different. And I'm happy to help in whatever way I can. Thank you.